I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. Like they said, I'm Shelly Stussick. I'm the Go Beyond Beauty Specialist for the Northwest Michigan Invasive Species Network. And I'm here to talk about our Go Beyond Beauty program, which deals with ornamental invasive species in trade, and our program to kind of combat that. Next slide. As always, we want to thank our major partners. ISN is a collaborative SISMA. Everything that we do, like you guys know, couldn't be done without our partners and our grantors. But also additionally, Go Beyond Beauty has an advisory committee for our statewide expansion. And so I wanted to thank those guys that are on this call right now too. Next slide. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on how this program was created and where we're at now. So in 2012, we had a call to communicate with garden professionals in our area. And this is just simply to open up a conversation about ornamental species in trade. And so we surveyed local professionals about what their wants, their needs were, certain species that were of concern for them, what their current knowledge was on invasive species, to kind of just open up a conversation. And then the following year it became more of a actual program where we reached out to local professionals and businesses, not as much as the big box stores, but more local businesses and smaller businesses. And we created this program where if they agreed to not sell or use the high priority ornamental invasive species, those ones that are still legal to sell, things that are above and beyond the law, like going above and beyond. And this was at the time comprised of our top 12 least wanted species for ISN in our region, and then some of the early detection species that we had. And the goal was to provide incentives for those businesses, retailers mainly, but publicity, education, resources, and collaboration. But most importantly, we wanted to make it free and accessible for folks. And so the publicity was really the selling point for businesses at the beginning. And I think there were about 6 businesses at the beginning. And that was really kind of the selling point for them. But really the advantage that we got and noticed throughout this whole thing was the collaboration and like the open communication with businesses. And so that's kind of how Go Beyond Beauty started out originally. The next slide. And as we grew, so did a desire from the public and from participants for resources and recognition. So ISN created species rack cards. We did public trainings. We created signs, bumper stickers. We also created some native plant signs because you can't really tell people what not to plant in their gardens or what not to buy without telling them what they should plant and what they should buy, which we recommend exclusively native plants. But that isn't necessarily a requirement of the program. You don't have to sell all native species. You just have to not sell the really bad, like I like to say, the really bad ones, invasives, are high priority species for our region. And then we also opened up some opportunities for recognition. We recognize sellers that sell 20 plus species of native plants, which at the time was a bigger deal than it is now. And we also increased our ability for participants to join. So it was initially just retailers, like who's selling these species, but we were landscapers and community participants wanted to be part of that too. So like landscapers, landscape designers, people who are making those decisions about what plants to plant and to put in for folks and their own clients. And then also community participants, really anyone with a garden. So from individual landowners to garden clubs, or like even if you had a law office with a bunch of gardens and stuff, they could be part of our community participants where they're making that commitment to not sell or use, plant any high priority invasives. Why wouldn't they be able to be part of that? They're helping shift demand just from the other side. They're not providing, but they're consuming. And so we also created an achievement program to help further recognize participants. And I'll get to that in a later slide. But go ahead, next slide. So a desire for action also grew throughout this process. And so something that I'll talk about a little was actually one of the trivia questions is our Japanese barberry trade up days, which is all pictured up here. And that's where we invite folks to bring just anyone, members of the community in our service area, to bring in barberry plants that they dig up from their, their landscapes. And we offer them a $5 coupon that's going towards participating Go Beyond Beauty businesses. So whoever wanted to join, and most of these are retailers here that participated last year, as you can see on that coupon, but there was a landscape designer as well. So, it could go to their services. We did put a cap on this. You could do 10 coupons for 10 plants, but that would bring so many people in that would just keep digging up plants anyway. And we got a lot more tossed than in those dumpsters than we expected. And so it's also educating about people about the proper way to dispose of invasives as well. And so we partnered with our local trash provider as well to make provisions to know that this is invasive species. And throughout this process, we also suggested alternatives and we advertised those. And some of our retailers even had those specific, really great alternatives, native alternatives for folks to use a coupon to. So that was, that's a really popular thing that we do. And there's been some interest in other areas of the state as well. This isn't an idea unique to us. Other states even have been doing things like this. And so that's one really popular thing that we do that we're known for the last few years. And but also with that desire for action, we have a call for support of local invasive species ordinances. And then also people wanted to get out themselves and get involved as well through volunteer work bees. Next slide. So truly, all in all, like Go Beyond Beauty is a voluntary, non-regulatory, I like to call it a celebratory program because it's very no pressure. It's very kind of, we're not like hounding people to be part of Go Beyond Beauty. The thing that I really love about it is that everyone who's here is genuinely excited to be part of this program and happy about it. So like there are more involved participants than others, and some are just in it for the publicity, and we're like, fine, great, as long as you don't sell these high priority species. It really is a simple program at heart with the ultimate goal to just use the high priority invasives, ornamental invasives, the ones that are still for sale or were. And like I said, anyone can be part of this, really, anyone with a garden, but it's mostly centered originally centered towards nurseries, landscapers, designers, and other garden professionals. So currently we have 8 retailers, 17 designers or landscapers, and then 35 community participants. That number has jumped quite a bit in this past year. And you can see, you might recognize some of these names, including in our area, especially Bird's Foot Native Nursery is a big one, but also Old Mission Associates, who we'll talk about later. Next slide. So getting back to our achievement program, the desire for recognition. So we do have silver and gold achievement levels for both garden professionals and then also non-garden professionals. And so these are fee-based kind of levels. Go Beyond Beauty is free at the base level for whoever, but for those who want to go even further with that for their staff with half or full day trainings, like invasive species education, they can receive additional recognition. So right now we do have one landscaper that is a gold achievement level, and that's Old Mission Associates. And you can see Katie actually right in there through their training in 2019, where they got a full day invasive species training, and they have an annual fee to sustain that, and they can get trained for their whole staff. And the silver and gold achievement levels for non-garden professionals look a little bit different. They are site visits to determine invasive species on site with a one-page explanation of what they have and like management suggestions, but also the gold level is the resources and native plant recommendations based on their site conditions. And so that's a one-time fee for the non-garden professionals, but this has been especially on the community level, a really, really something that has exploded in this past year with interest for people to know what they have in their gardens and around their landscapes. Next slide. So when you join Go Beyond Beauty, you know, we said it's free for anyone who wants to join, but like, what do you get, you know, for joining? Like, what is the incentive? You know, you make this commitment when that you won't use or sell these high priority species, and you get a lot of resources and materials if you want. We don't force them on anyone, but there's signage for participants, stickers. I think the biggest thing is the outreach and educational material, especially up top here, this Plan Before You Plant brochure, where it gives examples based on plant type. You know, you have these invasives like baby's breath, and then it gives you 3 different natives that either look similar or fill the similar gap in site conditions, should you want to replace that. And so that goes on for other species as well. We have rack cards and door hangers and native plant signs that we provide for our partners or whoever's interested in our service area at no cost for those actual physical signs that you can see in that photo. But anyone can request the PDFs because they're made under a Creative Commons license. Next slide. And promotion, like I talked about earlier, some people are in it for the publicity, and that's totally fine. When people come to us and ask us who, you know, we need invasive species management on our property, or we want to know where we can find a retailer in our area, we recommend our Go Beyond Beauty participants, and we recognize them for what they've been doing. And that's including with our programs like the Japanese Barberry Trade Up. And last year we created a Facebook and Instagram. ISN kind of already had a far-reaching audience, but now we have kind of a different audience of more the gardening community, more the people who are more so in the, yeah, I would say the gardening community that maybe necessarily our SYSMA social medias wouldn't necessarily reach. And so it's more about education and promoting our own participants specifically. And then we also do events. We promote through our native plant sale, our trade up, like we talked about, and then we do presentations as well. Next slide. So when I say high priority ornamental invasives, that is specific to our region right now for our current program. And so the top 2 pages, I know it's a really long list there, but the top 2 pages are high priority species. Those are the ones that Go Beyond Beauty participants have committed to not use or sell. And I'll get to them in a minute. But this entire ornamental invasive species list, the whole thing, is a really good opportunity to tell folks when they have questions about especially lower tier invasives, like lesser priority species, to say, hey, is this invasive? Or people will look and say, oh, I didn't know that, you know, Norway maple was invasive or anything like that. And it helps, especially that awareness section. I would love to add that to our required list, but we're trying to make it as easy as we can. But on the awareness species, it's like species like bishop scoutweed, myrtle, that kind of thing. Next slide. So if you can, I don't know if anyone can see this super well, but this is our current high priority for our region in Northwest Michigan invasive species list. The species with the red arrows are the species that are on ISN's top 12 high priority list. And so I do this in presentations just to show the overlap. Remember, these are all ornamental species. And then these are the priorities that ISN has, like with treatments and just with education. And so when you look at all of those red arrows, they're all ornamental species. They're the same. A lot of those species are the ones we're spending money out and out treating in the field. And so to point that out to people that, you know, these were intentionally introduced. That's what ornamental means. Is kind of a big connecting point for the public. I also highlighted in yellow the species that will be on the statewide, for Go Beyond Beauty's statewide expansion. Those are 14 species that we had to really, really narrow down to see what would be a ornamental priority for the state, stuff that are still being sold, that kind of thing. But we'll get to that in a minute. Next slide, please. All right, so the reason I was hired on last year is because Go Beyond Beauty is moving statewide through a 3-year grant through MSGP. We just got done with our first year where we're growing the program at home and preparing, kind of strengthening our own relationships and listening to our own participants and seeing what they liked, what worked for them these past, several years. And then for year 2 and 3 to expand opportunities statewide. So this will look like ISN empowering hubs throughout the state. We want to put little centers for Go Beyond Beauty for organizations or regions that will enact the program in their area. And so if folks want to participate and they don't have a hub, ISN will pick up those businesses or those participants. And so, but we really would like to establish, regions where people can go locally, because I don't want to be kind of raining on high for this program in Northwest Michigan when the terrain and the invasive species concerns around the state are so different, no matter like at different ends of the state. So it's really thank you, I see the 5-minute warning. So we're going to be offering Go Beyond Beauty at the base level, and this will be a simplified species list with the simplified species list that I pointed out. And all the fun things like the achievement levels and the events, they're not explicitly offered. It's just a simple base level program that will be offered. Next slide, please. So we did this to create fewer roadblocks because a lot of SISMAs are, working really, really hard and spread really thin, and we understand that. We want to make it as easy as possible for other SISMAs or friends organizations, because that's really who this statewide expansion was created with in mind, because a lot of SISMAs are already doing similar work addressing ornamental invasives or kind of paralleling, or will be in the future, the message of Go Beyond Beauty. And so we want to have free participation for that commitment to disuse high priority species for the state, those 14 species that are listed here. And, you'll receive the outreach materials, the signage, that sort of thing. And so these were the species that, in addition to our own research, when we made our own ornamental invasive species list a few years ago when we updated that, we sent out a survey to SISMA coordinators and said, ornamental species, what are your priorities? What do you see? Things that are still being sold. So we kind of pared down. And that's kind of the logic behind that species list there, if anyone's interested. Next slide, please. So like I said, empowering hubs to enact the program in their area. Ideally, it would be SISMAs or friends organizations, and ISN would be every step of the way supporting with materials, signage, physical and electronic materials, promotional materials as well, and have automatic systems in place like registrations all through a website, a single website for Go Beyond Beauty. And we want to, true to the theme of Go Beyond Beauty, we really want to make it opt out at any time. We understand that things change with SISMAs, and it's really not meant to be a burden. It's meant to be a helpful thing. And it's really meant to connect folks, businesses, and other folks in your areas with ornamental or gardening, invasive questions to their, proper authorities, their SISMAs, their friends organizations, their environmental orgs, and trying to make it as accessible as possible, like I said. And so the requirements we're keeping super low right now. We're, just for an example, this isn't it, but an annual meeting, very informal quarterly reporting isn't even probably the right word, but just like a check-in, and adhere to branding guidelines, things like that. And so we want Go Beyond Beauty to fundamentally mean the same thing across the state. These 14 species, If you see a sign for Go Beyond Beauty, you'll recognize it, that kind of thing. But it could look different. It could look, you could add more onto it. Like ISN's program will stay exactly the same as it is in our area. Next slide, please. And so currently we're getting our legalities, kind of red tape, kind of tromping through that right now, but we are starting with trial hubs. And so we're excited, ISN's excited to partner with Friends of the St. Clair River and Central Michigan SISMA initially. Like I said, it isn't quite official yet with the legal documents signed, but we're on our way there. And the reason for this trial basis is so that we can see what works and is needed before a large scale expansion. And that's also to utilize our grant funds better, because ISN is a collaborative organization, and that's kind of the approach that we're taking here. So for any interested participants, there is at the top of our website on our Go Beyond Beauty page, there's a sign up form for, the businesses or the community participants, but and SISMA coordinators will receive notice of this. We'll send out, ahead of time when it's officially statewide, I guess. But I do have a running list of other interested parties. So contact me if you're super interested. You guys won't, you'll hear about it. SISMA coordinators will hear about it. But if anyone else wants to know about the Go Beyond Beauty statewide and the nitty gritty details, they can please contact me. And next slide is my information. Oh no, I wanted to do a little feel good slide. Mostly this is just about letting gardeners know and letting people know that they can make a difference in their own habitats, like in their own landscapes, and kind of redefining our idea of habitat to the home gardener and the small business. And so these are just a couple extra things. Like, it's as much of an outreach program as it is about getting actual numbers of participants. And we love native plants and exclusively recommend them, but I tell everyone you could have a yard full of sunflowers and you would still qualify for this program. So just keeping that in mind, and that it really is super voluntary, super celebratory program. But next slide, I think, is my contact information. If you guys have any questions, I can put that in the chat box as well.